Hey everybody, Don with BrejaToneWorks, and thanks for watching. Today's video is all about what happens actually when you split a humbucker. A lot of people will go into modding guitars and they've got a humbucker or they put one in and they obviously want to split that into what they think is going to be a single coil. And ultimately they become a little bit disappointed in the output of that pickup. And there's a very specific reason for that, and that's what we're going to go over today. Most humbuckers that you can buy today are going to come in one of two flavors, either a 2-conductor, that is a 2-wire, or a 4-conductor. Here's a 2-conductor. It's got the braided wire, braided shielding over a single hot wire in the center. A typical 4-wire or 4-conductor humbucker is going to have 4 independent colored wires. Here I'm showing red, white, black, and green, along with some sort of a shielding wire or a bare wire. You can only split the coils of humbuckers with 4 wires. If you have a 2-wire humbucker, you cannot split the coils. You do need to get a different pickup. I have several videos out there. There are other people who have many as well on how you actually go about splitting a humbucker. Basically, you're taking the 2 joining wires of the coils and you're either leaving them alone or you're grounding them. If you leave them alone, you have the full humbucker. If you ground them, you're basically splitting the coils. Now, when manufacturers build their pickups, they wind each coil separately, and some manufacturers have one of the coils with more windings, therefore the output of that coil is slightly higher than the other. Some other manufacturers will wind both coils with the same number of windings, therefore the output is the same. Now, depending on how that manufacturer wound those coils, that's what the output of our pickup is going to be when we split the coils. We start with the full humbucker and whatever that output is, and it's either going to be roughly 60% of that or possibly 50% of it. So let's see some examples of this. So here is a hot bridge humbucker. When I tested this out, it clocks in at almost 15K of output. Now when I split that humbucker, you'll see that I'm getting about 7.7K, or pretty close to 50%. Here's another hot bridge humbucker. This one clocks in at 16K. When we split it, it comes in almost exactly at 8. So we're at 50% output when I split this humbucker. Now this is all fine and dandy until we actually start splitting more vintage and normal humbuckers, which most people tend to do. And this is where people have a totally different sound in their head than what their guitar is going to give them when they split these type of humbuckers. Now this is a vintage output humbucker, so it's coming in at around 7.6, 7.7K. And if you were paying attention earlier, you probably know what's going to happen. When we split this humbucker, we're getting an output of not even 4K. By itself, this doesn't seem to mean anything, but when you compare it to the output of an actual vintage single coil, which comes in this case at 5.8 and others into the mid-6s, you can see that the output of the split humbucker is much lower and is not going to sound exactly like a single coil pickup. All right, well, let's hear what this sounds like. I've got a Marshall amp, no effects, an SM57 on center, and I'm going through a private jack speaker. Now, hopefully that made sense to you and you were able to pick up that the humbucker, when split, does not sound exactly like a single coil pickup. Now, that's not to say it sounds bad. It just isn't as bright or have the same type of output as a standard single coil would have. And this is where sometimes guys are a little bit frustrated because that's what they wanted to have. And unfortunately, based on what we're doing, if you have a vintage style humbucker and you split that, it's going to have a little bit lower output, and it's not just going to get that kind of chime and or grit that you might be looking for. And yes, you can always go hotter. You can buy a hotter pickup, and then when you split it, you're getting closer to that single coil. Some guys don't like to do that because the output at a humbucker is too much for them, so it really becomes a balancing act. The point here is to understand what you're working with. Understand your humbucker, what is the output of it, and therefore what is the output of it if you do split it. And knowing that number will tell you whether it's going to sound closer to what you're hearing in your head or not. Now, hopefully this helped. I appreciate you watching, and as always, if you have questions, you can email me at BrejaToneWorks@gmail.com. I'll try to get back to you as quickly as I can. Thanks for watching, and remember, tone, it's not just a knob, it's sound advice.